Uh,
Are we live?
Apparently, we're live. So I put a. So if you guys want to have a quick look as well, I put a comment section as well. Um, cool, Kiara Koto. Um, we we've been having a lot of fun the last hour and a half, and I wanted to quickly have a chat with my friends Niha and Amar today. So thank you for the 6 people that are currently watching, and it's Halloween. And we've all had some really good and really terrible experiences with cultural and agility transformations. So this is going to really talk about some of those horror stories of our agile transformations. But we're not going to be all negative. We are going to talk about how we've overcome some of these concerns and these problems along the way. And we're also going to answer any questions that you guys have, anyone's watching, by the end of our ramblings from there. So, some quick introductions. So, my name is Michael. I am a business agility coach from Surge.coach, and we partner with leaders to maximize your organization's potential. Um, Guys, who are you? Where are you from?
Ladies first.
Thanks, Amar. Thanks, Mikey. Hey, everyone. I'm Neha. I guess a bit of background, people and culture person, trying to dabble into agile design thinking. And yeah, for the last little bit, have been working on some large-scale agile transformations. Little A, big A, and sorry, Halloween. I've got a little friend over here, Cleo, so she might join us from time to time. That's me, and it's really lovely to be here. Over to you,
Love it.
Amar.
And
Oh my
hey,
God.
Cleo.
Cleo, you look beautiful, and this is not fair. I can't go after that. I've got nobody here.
Nicole's
I
there.
Nicole is somewhere there. I've got. I'm an agile coach, working for about 5 years on both spectrum. Well, about 10 years in the both spectrum of the agile journey. On one side of the fence, on the receiving end, being part of a team, being part of a squad, being part of an ill-formed team, being part of a forced team, having great scrum masters, having testing scrum masters, and then being on the other side where I started my journey and I was a horrible coach, then a good coach, then a taskmaster, then hopefully a good listener, but on my journey and currently working at Mitre 10.
Nice. Awesome. So, look, I completely changed the agenda. Why not? Let's just completely change the agenda. Um, and for the
It's
reason why we
live.
changed the
Do
agenda,
that. Yeah.
say it again, Ma.
I said it's live. You can do that, right?
Yeah, we're just going to totally change the agenda. The reason why we're doing that, guys, is because we've spent the last hour and a half, 2 hours trying to get this to work. And what was it, Amar? About 10 minutes ago, we were like, let's cancel. This is not going to work. And then suddenly it started working. So we're really quite happy now. Um, so that was the introductions. That's the overview of what we're going to go through. We are going to look at the horror stories. So what I thought I would do, and you guys correct me if I'm wrong, is I'm going to go over my, I guess, worst horror story, right? And then it was going to be just a one-on-one, but now I'm thinking actually, you guys grill me, just ask me questions on it, right? And then I get the fun of coming back at you later on. How does that sound?
Sure.
Yeah, love it. All right.
Yeah.
So I won't name this company, obviously. But I was brought in. I was very excited. I was told, "Hey, Mike, we need a Scrum Master," and I was like, "Oh, that sounds cool." I always wanted to be a.
We've lost you, Michael. And you're still talking. We've lost you. Should we talk over him, Neha, or
I think so. Mikey, I don't know if you can hear us, but you're gone, buddy.
I'll tell you what, Neha, I can let's talk. Let's chat. It's funny when Michael was talking about the experiences 10 minutes before we did this live thing. It actually reminds me of the cultural transformation journey before people even start. It is so scary, and I feel like it's our human condition. I don't know I'm not much. I don't know much about psychology, but we always tend to look at the worst. And Michael's right. Before this even started, we were like, let's cancel. Let's cancel. I don't want to start. You know. But here we are doing it. I wonder. I mean, in the transformations, do you see the same thing? Do you see that right before we even start, people are being naysayers, and not because they're bad, maybe scared? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know where Mikey is, but it was funny because it was like thinking about the talk tonight. I had a similar thing. I was like, actually, it's the fear and what scares us about agile.
Hmm.
Um, and I think I don't know if it's so much about human conditioning because I was having actually a conversation like that with a friend. And there's two schools of thought, and they've both been proven, I guess, through psychological studies, right? One is in human nature, we actually really like change. So, one of the things that we kind of talk about when you've got a holiday or a positive change or something that you've got to look forward to, we're generally quite excited about that state of change and what's going to be different. The only kind of change, or what I think you're talking about, Amar, and sorry, it does connect to some of the things that I've observed, is actually that fear, the flight or fright mode, right? So our really primal, those survival instincts. So it's not often about actually a change that we're fearing, but it could be an unknown or the uncertainty, or maybe the certainty in the way things are now,
Yes.
and then therefore triggering that fear response. But I mean, I don't know in your experience, I don't know if I necessarily see that as cynicism, but in my experience, I've seen it's more of a unknown and a question mark. But
Mm.
also, quite often in those early stages, one of the things that I've seen done exceptionally well, but also really poorly, is how you really sell the benefits or the why, but really in the context of that team or that bigger organization.
Okay.
And sometimes I think depending on who's, helping change that mind, like we can also let ourselves down. Mikey, you back?
I believe so. Can you hear me?
Oh yes, we can hear you.
Yeah. So Amar,
Yes.
remember about an hour ago I mentioned I'll move on to the laptop. But I need to get my charger.
Okay. Yes.
So it went
Yeah.
into power saving mode, which turned off the um, DSR 60D sound recorder, which meant my microphone's not working. Um, but you
It's
guys
all
handled
good.
that very well. Live television, love it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome.
I mean, we were just talking about. It's funny. I was saying Neha. I'm not sure how much you heard it, but just how we were scared, right, to start this live session. It's kind of similar to transformation, and it's funny. It's when Neha, what you were mentioning about being hard on ourselves, or it's letting ourselves down, and it's a flight or fight. But surely through human history, if that truly was every human reaction of fight or flight, I don't know, we would have evolved. We wouldn't have evolved. So I'm really curious. I mean, it can just be flight or fight. I think flight or fight. Like if I'm a caveman, let's look primal, right? I'm in my cave. I'm safe. There's walls around me. I stick my head out. I see a saber-toothed tiger. I'm not going out. But if I don't see this tiger, I'm gonna take one step and going, that's a funny red-looking berry. And then that's my first step into transformation into adventure. I eat the berry. I die. The second person behind me watches me, comes out, there's no tiger, but does not eat the berry, and then looks right. So that kind of cycle of evolution, if we look at human instinct, is what it is. But I feel like when the minute we mention agile transformation, we're all coming to help you. I want to help you. I want to take you there. I wonder if we're like the saber-toothed tigers in front of everybody who's been working and doing a great job and going, yeah, I don't want to go out of my cave.
So just to clarify, Amar, what you're saying is we should sacrifice some Scrum Masters so that we can do good.
Hey, I love my Scrum Masters.
No, I totally agree. And when you think about it from a human evolution point of view, and I know Nihal would have touched on this when I was away, is if you think about from a psychology point of view, we need that borderline between change. It can't be too radical either way. Why? If it's too radical on the too much change mark, then people tend to think it's too scary, fear sets in, leadership will never allow psychological safety, it's too new. It needs to be vanilla plus one small change. And if it's not enough change, then people get like grounded and go, well, this is boring. We know this is just normal. And they revert very quickly back to old ways. So, yeah, I totally agree. You run away from the saber-tooth tiger, but you may get close to the lair as you gain more knowledge. I totally agree.
What do you think, Neha? That analogy of human nature. I mean, surely it can't always be flight or fight. I mean, that's so primal.
Oh, and I think it's Mike kind of hit the nail on the head about that one. I think it's in those kind of extreme scenarios because there's like actually equally the positive change or those holiday plans or actually even being challenged and sometimes not knowing is really exhilarating and really positive as well. So it has, but again, I think we can kind of go down a rabbit hole talking about obviously then the effect of that psychology on our physiology, the effects of dopamine versus cortisol, and then what's that doing to your body. So it's like we can go down a really deep rabbit hole on that,
Yeah.
and the combination of two as well.
Yeah.
But I think kind of going back to, those horror stories or what scares people with agile, really practically, we actually did a really similar exercise reflecting on one of the transformations I've just been working on to go actually in those early stages, not necessarily like the naysayers, but, what were those things that maybe felt really genuine. I was like, oh yeah, okay, that's valid. I can kind of that's a really logical reason why you're so unsure or somewhat scared or reluctant, to embrace this whole agile or transformation or a transformation to new ways of working, whatever you want to call it. And some of it like kind of came for more practically, and I think even especially when you've implemented is the whole, oh, there's too many meetings, I've got no time, and that's really real. I'm actually living that right now. 2 months into being part of a tribe, and there is. And I was like, actually, it's just because we haven't really quite figured out what we want to get out. And that'll take a little bit of discipline, it'll take practice, why you're wasting your time attending all the different ceremonies that you are. And then initially, one of the probably the two most common ones that we used to hear that again, I understand. Can you guys still hear me?
We can hear you, but I think you've frozen your
Your
video.
video's
It's quite
frozen.
cool.
I hear you.
You're sort of doing this lovely pose. It's quite cool. But keep talking though. 'Cause I think you're on a good train of thought there, especially when we talk about too many meetings, and you hear that quite a bit from people. Oh, I don't want to do Scrum. There's too many meetings, and it's like, and obviously I'm not actually a proponent of Scrum either. But
Oh,
Sorry about that, team.
oh, you're back.
you're back. Right.
Yeah, I mean I'm
My
not
internet.
I'm not the biggest fan of Scrum, should we say actually, but the reasoning behind why people say there's too many meetings is because they're not seeing the value in the meeting. And instead of trying to like push on a meeting to someone, you have to sort of look at it and go, well, actually, what is the value and the problem you're trying to solve? Sorry, carry on, Niha.
Okay, I think my internet. I think we're good. We won't have too many interruptions. But the other two really common things is like I guess the meetings one is really important one. But the other two that I heard and I was like, oh yeah, okay, I can understand. And it's hard to kind of argue with. One is obviously about everyone's a generalist. So if I'm an engineer, oh, I'm going to now be expected to do everything, and that's well, it can be really daunting. But again, I think for some people that can also be really exciting, the prospect of it. Either way, like if you're excited by it or if you're repulsed by it, that's actually not the reality. The whole T-shaped people that we kind of talk about, sometimes how that's positioned and what people take away from it can be, I don't know, can instill fear in people. Um, and I guess the other thing that we used to get quite a lot, so this is a real example, and it was really, really common, when you get the eye roll and you're trying to facilitate and take people through a lot of co-design groups, is that, oh, you just use, oh, we're really agile, but it's just you've just lost formal things or any discipline, or you've iterated again because we keep changing. I don't know, like the expectations keep changing in project, but we kept calling it agile. But obviously there were genuine changes, but there'd been a massive change from being overly formal in how you delivered or gave this stakeholder group and update to now going really, really formal and that whole pace over perfection.
And
But
so,
again,
Nihar,
that's quite.
think about that though, right? From a leadership point of view, if you're hearing that all agile is making more excuses quicker, how do you feel that they're going to respond to when someone comes along and says, "Oh, can we get time to market down so we can learn from our customers"? Is that agile? Oh, well, I don't make excuses. So how do you see that? We are, I guess, in the past.
Yeah, so I think that was one of the perceptions, probably one of the biggest perceptions we had to change really quickly, because it was like, actually no. And how are you making people feel safe? How are you understanding the psychology of these leaders and decision makers, right? Because it's like, actually, if you think about, you're asking them to change the exact thing that has made them successful up until now, and that's worked for them. And I'm talking about the mindset and obviously leading quite differently. And going, actually, no, I don't want you to have all the information. Whereas there's like, no, hold on, but me having all the information, all the answers is exactly what's made me really, really successful. I don't understand. So you can see how that would be really confronting at a personal level. So I think going back to the role of that transformation team, right in those early days, if you're going to earn the trust, how do you make it really safe for these people and stay really credible to earn that trust? So if I had that scenario or that problem, again, maybe, I do in those early days need to present it differently, but we're always conscious of, I guess, that credibility.
Yeah, I
What do
totally
you
agree.
think, Amar?
No, I mean, I was just writing down some post-it notes, and to be honest, you got my attention with this. When most companies or teams create a transformation team, right? And there's a team that's going to help everybody else, and we're the transformation team. And I'm part of one right now, and you made me think about some of the things that I've been feeling, but I wasn't sure why. But it's funny. In the team, we're comprised of people in the business that have don't know what agile is and want to label. They want to feel comfortable by saying, "What is agile?" An agile timesheet, an agile post-it note, an agile, right? And then there's some of us, half of the team, have been through it before. So thinking the analogy of fear and flight, there's half of us going, "I've been down this road maybe 6 times, and I came out alive. So let's go! I'm excited. Let's try." But the other half are going, "Wait a second, as you mentioned, Neha, I've been successful all this time by making sure things happen my way and all the ducks are lined up. So it's really hard." So in our team, I'm just thinking, we have the responsibility for those who are comfortable to pull slowly and go at the pace that they want to be. And a wise man once told me, the only way people follow you is if you remove the risk for them. And we talk about meetings. We spent 4 hours of meetings, and we haven't even talked about a backlog of what we're going to do um, to do a transformation. But we spent a lot of time trying to make it safe and understand what are the biggest risks. And at first, it felt like a lot of meetings, but now it feels like, now listening to you guys talk, that probably is the right move, because we start slow, we will move faster and move further together.
Yeah, no, I love that. That's so cool. So you can see why this is a really good Halloween, right? Because every time we hit a new transformation, we come across the same frightening stories that make leaders and people generally scared. I had someone a couple of weeks ago come to me and say, when am I going to get my own recognition? I said, what do you mean? Oh, well, since you've been here, Michael, you've been really, appreciative towards the team, and you've set KPIs for the team, and you've done lots of team, and I'm fed up with the team stuff. When am I going to get my pat on my head? I'm paraphrasing, obviously. And it's something I didn't even think about. A lot of the times we focus so far on the teams and the leaderships that we forget about the individual human need for recognition. And again, it's another horror story, right? It's another something that has come up that I didn't see coming. It's like you learn along the journey. So if someone came to you, Amar,
No, sorry, Mike, I didn't mean to interrupt, but you just remind me, one of our cohorts in David Morris, lovely quote. He's reading this book called The Language of Appreciation. And I was just so curious. I got it. Did you know apparently only 6%, I hope I'm getting it right, 6% of people actually want that appreciation by recognition. The majority don't want that, but it's a lot of background to the performance objectives or what I think I want. Because even those who get it still do end up being happy and feel appreciated, and leave or unhappy. So it's funny you mentioned that because it reminded me of something that he told me or the book was talking about. So I wonder if it really is appreciation. I mean, do people want to be recognized? Oh, me, or is there more to it? I don't know, Neha. Have you seen people actually strive, even if you give them the recognition, going, Neha, this was all because of you, or they want more?
Yeah. I mean, I have a really, because it's like we're talking about really two different things here, right? At an individual level, and I'm kind of going to go to that back to, I don't know, whether you look at the Dan Pink model, in terms of what your intrinsic motivators are, whether you look at TOMO, in terms of again how and why we're motivated. So I think that there's that component, and I think we're also talking about performance and performance objectives, and obviously that transition from recognizing individual sense of achievement versus team.
Mm.
And I think like for me, like performance is one thing. I've been obviously being making that transition from HR and into agile, probably one of the hardest things to solve. And again, I've only seen one or two companies or even teams try and do something a little bit radical or really different in that space with a lot of success or sense of achievement. So I guess on the individual side, my really short, really simple answer is we're all so different. So while I might like that sense of achievement and getting that personal recognition might be really important to me and something I value really, really highly, you may want to be recognized and appreciated in a completely different way, right?
Mm.
And that's just because we're really different and we value different things and we're motivated by different things. So it's like again, the success of that product owner or your coach is actually even as a teammate for your colleagues, how are you showing up for each other and how tuned in are you and how you like to be recognized versus what Mikey would appreciate, if we were on the same team. So it's like, I guess that's really equally important for your product owner, equivalent person for your coach, but I think more importantly as a teammate.
Mm.
And then the whole transition from obviously recognizing individual performance or even setting individual objectives to a team objectives, I think for me, quite often when we talk about that, we instantly jump to the motivation and what motivates us. I guess for a second, if I came back to the business model and why we're redesigning work in this way and why we're redesigning and asking, I guess, those cross-functional teams of people to work on, common goals together is because our work's different. We're not like, I guess, Kaizen, Toyota, all the learnings we had from GE were really, really good for that time because work and organizations in the world that we were working in was so different. Whereas I was like, actually, work, especially 2020, it's chaotic. So you can't actually deliver as much value, as efficiently using those old ways. So I think for me, just for a second, when you talk about to individual to team, yeah, there's that individual component and what people want to get out of it, but equally, it's also what works for the business and why we're also emphasizing the team component.
Yeah,
What do you guys think?
yeah, I agree. I also feel like in this case with this person, it was too fast, too soon as well. So their intrinsic motivations with nothing to do with money. If it was money, they wouldn't be in the public sector. They'd be in the private sector. If it was a pat on the head, they would be going to their manager for the pat on the head. What they really wanted was, what they really needed was stability or slow or very small, slow change. So what I found was I moved the team so fast and I forgot about that one individual who's on a different journey, different fears, and needed a different change. Very easy to rectify for me personally in that case, but it made me click to how many other horror stories are out there when we just go, oh, they're the difficult person. Oh, you don't want that person, they're difficult. And it's like, well, what makes them difficult? What, because they don't come to the stand up and do what I did yesterday, what I do today, what any blockers. They come up there and talk about what they want to get done with somebody else today. So yeah, I think there's also a part of the journey in them as well. It's a kind of another layer we need to be aware of.
And it's funny. I mean, it's funny. Listen to what you're saying. I mean, if I flip the coin, as a company, sometimes want the agile transformation to reap the benefits of it. You know, it isn't because they want to be agile. So there's a need.
Yeah.
The company needs to make more money, survive, compete faster, and we forget that's a real need. The person's need could be very different. So in your story, Michael, I mean, there's a one we think is surely there's a balance between being too empathetic and waiting for this one person. Not that they're slower, but they're on a different journey path and their needs are different. But the
Yeah.
company or the team or the organization or even the customers want things now. It's a very cutthroat environment. You know, like I mentioned, Neha, it's a different world now. But I mean, I struggle with this agile transformation because for me, agile, the definition of agile is prioritizing collaboration over anything.
Mm.
So it's not, you know, you can't say something is agile. If we can't be agile, if I'm going to say, yeah, but sorry, team member, you know, you don't like meetings or whatever. But a transformation by itself in organizations sometimes is necessary. Where do you draw the line? When
Well,
do
I'll,
I?
I'll just add to that, Amar.
Yeah.
So my own thesis, I was kind of shocked horrid when I interviewed transformational leaders, and I asked them one simple question, expecting to get different answers. Um, why did you do your transformation? 33% said, don't know. So there was no reason behind it, right? It just literally was, it's the next thing to do, right? 22% was because our competitors are doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And it was kind of that scary moment that you realize if a third of people start transformations for no real objective reason, you wonder why they failed. And yeah, it kind of that alone scares me because when you take back to mapping out a customer journey map, and you go, well, actually, we can't innovate fast enough, or our strategic direction on this product is actually more green fields. We need to basically iterate along the customer journey. How do we do that? Oh, we need shorter cycles to do better learning. How do we do that? Oh, well, we better collaborate more. How do we do that? Oh, we better have T-shaped people. You know, so we come out here as coaches and go, well, actually, we need some T-shaped people, but we forget all the reasons behind why it is and why it may not even matter. I mean, so we're currently at Silver Ferns Farms. Should Silver Ferns Farms be completely agile? Question, just to throw it out there. When you know what they do, they're a meat manufacturer.
I mean, it's not the answer for everything. I mean, Neha,
No.
yeah.
I don't
No.
know. For me, I mean, and Mike and I have talked about this quite passionately as well. It's like, what's the problem you're trying to solve? Like, I just hate doing things for the sake of doing things. And it's not, sorry, it's not I don't mean that in a complacent way, like, why fix something that's not broken? It's just like, actually, no, where are you trying to be
Where are you
better?
going?
What are the benefits? Yeah. And like the clearer you are, the more, well, you're just going to pick the right solutions, right? So even in your transformation, it may be agile, it may be wagile, it may be something actually completely different. And that would be awesome because you're focusing on solving the right problems.
Yeah, and just so Peter just said as well, you know, what's their goal? What's the goal? Like, why did you suddenly go in this direction? So Silver Ferns Farms, good example. They've got some great people there doing some great work on lean. Where does agile fit in? It fits in from an innovation point of view. You know, what is your value add products? What different type of customer segments are you going into? Use some design thinking to understand the products that make sense. What's the blue ocean thinking? How do we differentiate ourselves? How do we dominate and create competitive advantage? You know, that's where agile comes in. That's where agility comes in. That's why agility is not just agile delivery. And we talk about agile delivery like it's this be all and end all. And it's just really not. I've met some really good companies that have a lot of agility. They can adapt to changes very quickly. They're responsive, but they focus on the customer and the strategy. There's no cognitive diversity, i.e. cross-functional teams, and there's no employee empowerment. So most people would go, well, that's not agile. It's like, no, it's not agile delivery. It doesn't meet the criteria of your agile fundamentals training. Of course not. They're doing very well. how Amazon treats their employees is terrible. You hear some horror stories how to treat your employees. They're a $1.7 trillion business, doing very well, doing two things: focusing on the customer, really understand that customer experience, and the strategy of dumping products that make no sense. Now, from our point of view, we go, oh, that sounds good. Oh, wait, hang on, don't sack them all, you know, but they will. They'll sack entire departments that their products foul on. We would say reestablish the IP in somewhere else, but you know, so I don't class Amazon as agile, but they have great agility. They can really bounce on things very quickly. Is it right? Is it wrong?
But I wonder if they have pockets of where necessary. Maybe they're smart enough to, because agile
100%.
is very beneficial in these complex environments, in design, in trying to uncover, experiment, prototype or something. You know, when you're delivering an outcome, not an output. But after they do that, and it becomes a bit of a BAU, maybe there's more benefit of going, cool, thank you, hand it off to the other team that's going to be flowing and lean, and that's the right thing. And I
Totally.
guess, yeah, I
So,
like what you're
so
saying.
what does this come back to,
This
Amar?
can be the answer. Not the whole company has to be agile. Not everybody has to.
No,
do
but what does this come
these
back to? Right at the start, measure where you are, measure your current state, understand your strategic direction, understand your vision. And if you go look at Simon Wardley's maps, for instance, if you map your entire value chain through an area that's basically been commoditized, you don't need agile. Agile makes no sense. Even lean makes no sense. Bring in Six Sigma and really nut down your efficiencies, right? You may have pockets. I love the idea of pockets. I do. And if you think about things like the orchestra model from Harvard Business Review, right? All of the work from guys called Day and Lee, 2018. If you want to look it up, I'll put it in the note show. I'll put it in the show notes afterwards. Oh, check me out. But I'll also point you to my own study around company structure. And if you read the thesis on organizational structure for customer experience and competitive advantage, you'll see quite clearly that you structure around the customer. Some customers don't require agile delivery. They probably require steady, good, solid experience that's not changing. I don't know about you, but I don't want my toilet brush holders to change. Not right now. I want to go buy one and I want it to work. And I only buy one every 2 years, so I want to make sure it's the same style I bought. I don't want to suddenly press a button and it all flushes everywhere. Like, it's going to freak me out. So we have to think in terms of what products we're actually looking at and if it makes sense. This was a great conversation, everyone. I love this.
Neha, do you imagine if we were go back 100 years and we're the latest fad? Agile has become. I mean, we're all talking about it, and everyone wants to put agile in everything. I had a friend talk about agile timesheets and agile post-it notes. I'm like, what does that even mean?
What do they mean by it, though? Exactly, Amar. They
you
mean
mentioned
shorter
the Six
cycles.
Sigma. Yeah, you mentioned the Six Sigma and other theories. I'm sure they were very popular. But Neha, imagine if we were 100 years back and talking, would we that fanatical about?
Well,
You know?
if we were like 100 years, kind of time traveling, sorry, like because it's elections and everything, the first thing that kind of came to my mind is like, well, technically I couldn't have voted, I think it was only about 100 years ago. So I don't know if we'd be having this conversation. I sidetracked.
Good point.
But one thing is you both were having that conversation about kind of agile, lean, Six Sigma, different ways, but also that organization. One thing that with your conversation that you actually made me think about, it's not even so much about like, hey, what problem you're trying to solve and then therefore what's the right methodology. Sometimes actually even within that is being able to let go. So for example, Six Sigma, like they're actually all amazing practices, right? Like all of it. It worked and it's really brilliant for the right thing or the right problem that you're trying to tackle. So there's nothing wrong with those frameworks or those philosophies, but what I've experienced a lot repeatedly, doesn't matter what organization, what team I go to, we're like actually, oh, so we'll do this and this and this, and we'll do agile on top, right? Whereas so it was like actually what I loved about Mikey when right at the beginning you were talking about the Amazon example. Yeah, cool, they shut everything down, but there's a lot of merit in that approach too. Because quite often it's so hard to let go because you're like, oh, but we've spent so many I don't know, millions of dollars in the investment. It was a really successful program. Now we've got everybody who's silver or whatever level credited, and so many people black belt. So we couldn't just let go of that, could we? But I was
No,
like,
that
actually,
sunk
would you?
cost mentality is crazy. And I'll give a quick example of that. I'll try not to name the company, but during the what's the PC word for it? Sorry. Oh God, sorry. I'll just say it. When the gay and lesbian marriage was happening, is that the right term? Oh, probably get
When it
slammed for
was when civil union became
when
legal in New Zealand.
yeah, in New Zealand, yeah. So that was during that time period, right? So I can't remember if we meant to say a certain word or not. I apologize in advance. But I remember I was with a company at the time. They said, oh, "Okay, we need to plan for polygamy," and I was like, "So
Wow.
what?" Oh, but there's 2,000 polygamists in this country, so we need to start planning for those. I said, "Okay, awesome. There's 2,000 people. Benefits to us is somewhere in the region of $60,000 to $70,000."
We just lost you.
How about now?
Yes. We
Um,
lost. Oh no, you're back. You're back.
I'm back. Sorry. So on that database, there was, they will have like 2,000 people. It will save 60 grand, and it will cost, 5, 6K to maintain a year. Simple, right? Short scope, very easy to look at. They said, "Oh, we can't. We've already spent 80,000 on our inception point." I said, "What?" "Oh, we got this consultancy company in, and they've spent 80,000, and they've given us a solution that would cost 300,000, but we're already 80,000 in now, so we might as well continue." And I'm sitting there baffled as a business analyst, thinking I could do it on a spreadsheet, I could do it on a database. Take 80,000, throw it away, and they wouldn't do it. And that happens more than we like to. And one of the reasons why I love agile delivery more than anything else is the fact is that we can find out very quickly for like $5,000 whether something works or not. And if nobody wants it or it makes no sense, we scrap the project. In Scout Agile Framework, why I love it, but no one does it, is you have epics. In an epic, you have a hypothesis. If it fails the hypothesis testing, you cancel the whole epic. But they're not doing that. They have strategic initiatives that they put into epics. And then they'll spend countless millions as a bucket system. And that bucket system is just going to waste money, and it's not agile. But it will fit into the safe framework. Right? Oh, sorry, it is agile technically, but it's not. It doesn't increase the agility in the organization. So it's one of those scary things for me. That personally, I see a lot. So I was thinking, I did start my story. Should I tell you my most horrific moment?
Go ahead.
Go on.
Go on. This is my most horrific moment, and you can laugh at me, ask questions. So I walked in. I was very excited. I was very green to that Scrum Master role. Funny enough, this is about 2 years before I met Peter. Peter Woolley is on the live stream. I can see him. I walked in, and I was told by the project manager, "Michael, we need you. The guys voted for Scrum, and they told me that they want you to push pure Scrum onto them, like just everything pure, right?" I said, "Okay, interesting." So straight out the 12-page book. He went, "Yep, everything perfectly the same." So cool. So I'll have a quick retro and talk to them about it. "Oh no, they can't stop, and they've asked you just pile drive in there." I never questioned it. It was my stupidity, really. I rocked into this organization. I set up the 4 teams in Scrum, did some training, got them cycling through it. And the whole way through, people were like, "Yeah, no, Scrum's great. Scrum's great." But there was no, when you start feeling this like, they don't really care, and you just wonder why. And it finally came out because the one thing I didn't do, which I wish I did, is my learning. I didn't let the teams decide their own teams. The project manager had already decided that, so I kept that, and I wish I didn't do that. What he did is he put 2 senior tech leads in every single team who had drunk the Kool-Aid. And a consultant had come in 3 months earlier, and the tech leads and the managers had decided that they were doing Scrum. And that's why I was brought in. It took me 3 months to undo the psychological damage from me coming in and just telling people what to do. Even if I asked questions, it was met with, I think we should do this. And it was just straight out the Scrum Guide. And what I found out was they had 15 people pretty much removed from the program, 8 of them made redundant because they didn't agree with Scrum. So history and context is king, guys. And since that moment, I've never trusted a single person. And that was about 8 years ago now, 9 years ago, 8 years ago. And since that day, I've always done one rule, and that is basically spend 2 weeks just chilling, waiting, and going for coffees with random people. Because if you ask questions during coffee, you get much better answers. If you ask questions in the pub, you get much better answers. Glass of wine. Where's my wine? A glass of wine is so much better than sitting in a meeting room and listening to people as a team. So yeah, that was my biggest horror story. As I say, it's like they treated me like another big bad manager. It took me 3 months to undo that, and probably set them back at least 9 months in their development by coming in and just forcing Scrum. It was good Scrum, by the way. We had perfect ceremonies. We were iterating. We had product owners that were from the business. To most people, you probably think this is amazing. It wasn't what they wanted. What they wanted was more involvement, more control. The business product owner made no sense. They wanted actual customers, your frontline staff. Yeah. What do you guys think?
Sounds scary.
Sound familiar? Sounds scary? But how do you fix that, right? Because you're brought in, you're paid $500 a day. You're brought in by a project manager who tells you that's what you're doing. Do you just walk out?
Well, it's scary. I mean, honestly, you asked the question. I don't know how you feel, but being an employee versus becoming as a consultant, there's a bit of a emotional bias that gets removed or gets added in. So, were you an employee at that time, or were you brought in as a consultant or a contractor? Michael, what's your story?
So my little confession. I've never been an employee.
Okay.
There were some small weird times where I was employed as an employee because they had no capex budget, or there was hey, you can grow into a CTO role, which never comes, by the way. Don't believe anyone who tells you that, because you never become CTO. But no, so I'm always, I guess, I was a contractor at that time. My paycheck was derived by the project manager. So.
Oh, Neha, do you think it makes a difference if you're an employee, part of the system, versus coming in your own system?
I mean, from my personal experience, no, at all. And I've been both, Mikey. Quite deep in those programs. And in my experience, to be honest, I guess the reception that I've received, I haven't found it any different or any which way. But having said that, every other team that I've been part of, team member or been in a coaching capacity, I've never had a team that's not a work in progress, or that's how I like to think about it. Whether they're carrying some baggage, whether they're creating new baggage that they need to solve and work through. And then sometimes it's actually you are humming, but there are things outside of the team dynamic, that need tweaking or optimizing. But I guess really thinking back, I have so many questions, Mike, like based on your story in terms of what else was going on in that environment. So even from your project manager, like what else was part of the brief, and if not, why not? And then how important they thought or believed, that team dynamic. Because one thing, like as you were talking about that story, just made me think about a very recent example, right? So I've got a product owner gig, job sharing with another product owner. We've got 2 squads between the 2 of us. And another thing that we've been testing is if that 1-to-2 ratio can work. But what's been really fascinating, kind of having that helicopter view across those 2. So one team, very similar to what you've kind of described, not necessarily all because of any history or any historical thing that they're bringing into it, but for whatever reason, the team dynamic isn't as strong, or that psychological safety and the trust and that, sense of oneness yet. And the other team, who actually started about, I don't know, 2 sprints after this team, gelled like this, like almost instantly. There's a couple of very specific things that are doing this to the team dynamic, but you can see these guys, they're just flying. They're just flying through a lot of that stuff. Whereas in this team, and the conclusion that I came to as we were observing and discussing this, was that actually whatever team you're part of, in terms of how fast or how effective you are, will always be kind of that your slowest common denominator. I don't like saying the lowest, but I guess, the slowest. And it's purely because it was like, actually, we all bring something different. So wherever that last person is on that journey, wherever that last person is on feeling really connected, buying in, not agile, but actually the team and how I feel about the team, that's probably going to be a reflection of that overall team.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head then, yeah. So just to bring
I
back
don't know, that's kind of an observation.
No, it's a great observation. If we go back to the study with the Navy SEALs as well, right? So, quick overview of Navy SEALs. They pretty much get paid at a management level to get more people through the test, but they can't make the test easier. So they did 2 tests. The first test was they put all of the best people for the initial training, and they spread them out among all the squads. Because it'll bring people up, right? You see some guy with glistening abs or some girl with some, great push-ups, you go, wow, I want to be like them. Pass rates plummeted. Absolutely plummeted. Because humans don't like to, A, be shown up, but B, more importantly, they want to know what's outside. We said this right at the start, right? There's a channel of learning, and you can't be outside of the channel. I'm not going to go for a 5K run with our marathon, Kiwi Olympic runner, right? I'm going to feel demotivated. I go for a run with people slightly better than me, just slightly. So Navy SEALs, they found this out, and they went, you know what? We need to spread everyone evenly. So the worst team would all have the worst people in. And again, I'm not trying to say all agile teams have the worst people in. Very similar to Nihad. I want to actually downplay people that point of view, but put the best people together. And funny enough, Amazon's done something very similar. So what happened? Navy SEALs, pass rate went skyrocketing up because they've created an actual team cohesion, because they were like each other. We're just literally monkeys in clothes. That tribal cohesion caused safety and trust, and people helped one another get better. So I totally back you on that, because that is exactly how I feel. And it's actually how I'm fixing the problem currently in one of my organizations. That individual, they have not come to the party as fast as everybody else. And do you know what? Across the organization, there's another 5 people that are very similar. Those 6 people will create a team very shortly. And I can almost guarantee those 6 people will just radically change how they do things, because they'll understand it and they'll feel more involved and more of a team. They're on the same journey, not 2 different journeys. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's it, Mike. Actually, it's an open question for you both. This is another thing in the context of agile transformations we've talked about quite a lot. So, when you're talking about actually how you form teams or identify teams, but one other question that comes up all the time is, in those early days, when you've got people that are scared, where do you focus your efforts? I'm biased. I have a really strong view, but before I share, I'm really curious to see where you guys are on this. It's like, do you focus your energy on the stragglers or people that really need maybe more proof points to really kind of buy into it, and changing the hearts and minds? Or do you go to those people that have already bought in that are just waiting to be given a chance to go?
Go on, Amar.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna have a controversial answer. Right.
Don't you say it depends.
Okay. I'm not gonna say depends. I actually have a strong opinion that I formed just 2 months ago. So ask me 3 months ago, a different answer. But from what I see, I'll give you the answer first. I would focus my efforts on those who are already in. Yes, I'm gonna do it. Where do I start? I'll work on my own time. I'll work in the evening. Um, can I share why? I'll give you my. So apparently, I forget what the label. I saw it somewhere. I don't know if it was. I think it was in Simon Sinek's "Start with Why," his book, or there was some psychology book. They said, listen, it's a parable, right? It's a little median. When it comes to change, there are people will not do anything until somebody else has done it first, but they'll happily follow, right? They're followers. And there are others who just won't follow because they just don't want to, but they'll do it because they have to. So they'll say yes because they need to pay a mortgage and do whatever. But then you have in the beginning a small percentage that are never ever gonna change, right? And are scared, not scared, but just have too many issues or challenges to address for change. But then you have a smaller percentage of these people who are willing, who are gonna change and are gung ho. So the theory says, right? And I tried this a couple of times and I found some success. So until I get proven wrong, I'm gonna keep trying it. Is get the small percentage, make a loud noise, kick it up. Guess what? I'm never gonna shift the dial on those people who are not gonna change. But guess what? Those first adopters or those brave gung ho, which is in society about 2%, 3% in an organization, same thing, a small group. They will pave the way for the large group of followers who will follow if they see somebody else succeeding, and then the other ones, the other large population of the organization will follow anyway because they're gonna say yes because they want to pay their mortgage and they're not really fussed. So that's my take. That's what I would do. That's what I would find. I don't know, Mikey. What would you do? Who is your focus on?
It depends.
You just said we can't do that.
No, but I think it does depend a little bit. So let me clarify a little bit. It depends on what context. The reason why I say that is because let's say you're an internal staff member right now who's looking at their organization going, I want things to change. Then totally go find some champions. Find 2 or 3 people, get really excited, get people on the journey. Totally agree. From my point of view, though, I'm not a permanent employee. I come in for a specific reason normally. I almost always complete a different reason than what I'm brought in for now. It just always ends up that way. It's like, I want vanilla ice cream. No, you think you want vanilla ice cream, but what you've been basically asking for is a Snickers bar dipped in vanilla ice cream. It's a completely different thing. Anyway, here's a random example I'm going to make up. Let's say, for instance, you are on a 400-meter track. However, at every 100 meters, there's burning hot coals. And there's a stopping point at the 100-meter mark, each one, right? If you're all sitting on the start line together, then sweet. Let's run a few people over, show them success, and then people will join you, right? However, if some people are 300 meters ahead, some are 100 meters ahead, some people at the start line, would you really want to push the other guys to 400 meters and really segment the tribe further? So this is why I'm a big believer of basically getting people to catch up before I start pressing on. The same way with organizational structure. When we think about terms of agility in an organization, I want to basically round off that culture before I start exploring new cultures. And the reason why I say that,
sorry, so you're saying your focus is on the on the people who are feeling challenged, right?
if it's spread out, and it normally is for me, Amar. What I tend to find is you've normally already got some champions. You've already got a pilot team that's doing some random things. You've also got ones over here doing Scrum, and over here there's a design thinking team who have no connection to the rest of the business. They're just doing a whole bunch of pictures, and it looks really awesome. It does look awesome. Like it's quite a few businesses who have a design thinking element, and no one knows about them.
That's so true. I mean, there's always a design thinking team somewhere in the corner.
They're normally under people and culture, and this is the thing. People need to look at outside IT. I see so much growth in people and culture right now, and they got their heads glued on. They've got the studies behind them. They've got the case studies behind them. They've seen transformations. They understand people. And what Agile, I think, personally has found, and where agility will push forward, is that agility really is about people, and Agile is about the people in the process, right? The people in the process. So I would bring the stragglers up. And the reason why I would do that is because I don't want to segment the culture further. Unless I'm going to restructure an organization, that's a whole different story. But the reason why the coals are there is because when you start a process of moving from one stage to the next, to quote someone, who was that? Nicole from ACC. If you ever watch this, Nicole, I love this statement. She said, "You can't be part pregnant. You're either pregnant or you're not pregnant." And I love that. And it's the same with transformation. Once you start the process, there's no going back. You can't license somebody and then suddenly say to them, "Oh, can you hold on a minute while this person catches up?" They need to carry on going. So if you find people through the process already, keep them going until they're at a stable point. So sorry, Amar. Yeah, it depends.
That's cool. I just remembered this is what it's called. Apparently, the law of diffusion of innovation.
Oh, that's cool.
Write it down.
That's cool. I like that. Niha, did we answer your question?
Yeah. Yeah. No,
So what's your answer? Where's your bias?
You said you had strong opinions. Tell us.
I do. I think it's actually really similar. Because in a roundabout way, I think you both agree.
Yeah. I think
and yes, context is always king, and it really depends on where they are. But I think for me, it's always, yeah, in the beginning, it's like actually focus your energy on people or areas that need it the most and that are willing. Create that kind of it's almost that creating a really positive energy, right, versus focusing on the energy that isn't. It's funny because it's like that often kind of well there's two ways, right? Like, because there's a really important debate around it. Remember about a couple of years ago, I used to say, I was like, oh, wouldn't it be great like if we just focused our energy, can see the problems that want things to be a little bit different, right? Where you don't have to create a lot of the burning platform. So I was like, oh, I really want to create FOMO, like, for the people that aren't in. I want it to be that exciting, that fun, but also at the same time be so meaningful. People that aren't in have FOMO. But obviously, fear of missing out or FOMO can have a negative kind of, from a psychology point of view. It's like, oh, well, when you've got that, that's not necessarily a positive thing. And why would you want to do that to other people like they're being excluded? And I was like, well, it's an open invite. So it's only a fear because you've created something that is so energizing and exciting, not the negative. But honestly, twice now, it works every time. You get more traction. You get, that people, that bulk percentage in the middle are quicker to buy in and shift. And it's not to say actually people that aren't your first movers aren't going to be adaptive. Quite often they surprise me in the best ways. I was like, hey, I just needed my time. I'm a processor. I need to see I'm not a risk taker. So actually I just need, but when I click, they're probably the most effective, one of the best advocates as well of it. But I think there's like a timing. So it's like absolutely in the beginning, I'd focus on the first movers, but there may come a point where it's like, oh, okay, actually now I need to think about this quite differently. So if you're not on board, why not? What isn't? And actually, is it valid and logical? Because a lot of the times, when you have that conversation, it's like, oh yeah, okay, I agree. I'd struggle with that too, and that's also a little bit annoying.
Yeah.
So it's actually just, at that point being curious. So,
You raised a really good point there. I loved, and it meant that she raised two really good points I loved. The first one reminds me of Hertzberg in 1950s, right? It talks about hygiene factors, both positive and negative, and how like the negative ones can really put you off something. And if you overlay that with people's mindsets of, and I don't mean mindset of, oh, you should have growth mindset or not. No, I mean just generally how their psychology works. I'm an extrovert. I love talking. In fact, I could probably talk for 3-4 hours and my brain will basically find the words to say as I talk because I help me talking. Other people really internalize communication. They think over long times. Their subconscious thoughts are amazing.
I can't picture you doing that, Mike.
What's that?
That much talking.
I could. But yeah, I find it fascinating because so many people I thought were not on board, and I think some people in our industry would go, they're just not getting this. They're not agile. We need to train them. We'll put them for a 3-day course where we'll basically blow on them for all benefits. Oh, they didn't engage. They weren't valued. They didn't find the value, Michael. What do they say? Oh, nothing. That's the problem. Don't talk to them for 3 days and then ask them how they're feeling. And you go and do that, and you realize that they're just waiting to say all these things to you, but they need to internally process it first. And that's fine. We're not all just this like personality that's masculine and extroverted and European centric. If you were to go to Singapore, for instance, and you tried this way of working on people there, they'd think you're rude. Or you went to UK. I give examples. I came from UK to here, obviously, and the first thing I found, the most rudest thing I found in this country, you guys don't wear ties in interviews. I'm serious. I was put off for like weeks. I was demotivated because you didn't wear a tie. So people don't seem to understand that, and it's just very simple things: culture, psychology. Just because you believe that something's actually going to, like how you would respond, doesn't mean that's how other people will respond. Love it. All right, so I'm stoked that we actually did an hour and 5 minutes of just random conversations. So the agenda, Amar, I'm going to throw you into it. Is agile a costume? Is it something we wear because we say we're going to become agile? Is it something that it's just a pile of falsehood? Is it a costume we wear?
Okay, well, let's put it this way. When I hear the word costume, I think of an event, right? I'm going to a party. It's a themed party. I have to fit in. So for me to fit in, I have to wear a costume. Like we're going Scooby-Doo theme, right?
Okay.
So that's where a costume, and a lot of people wear costumes. And if you don't wear a costume, you feel left out. I personally hate wearing costumes. It's a cultural thing. Long story, a different YouTube channel for that one. But I feel the pressure when I go to a party and I'm not wearing a costume. So when you think of the word, when you ask me, is agile a costume? You know what? Sometimes it is. It's not as scary. When I'm interviewing and I'm joining a company says, we're agile, but I don't know if I am or not. But I'm going to say yes. I'm going to wear that costume because I don't want to be the person who showed up at the party wearing a tie when no one wears a tie. So I think sometimes
it's a nice bit there, Amar. Let's just go into that if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Do you think that as an agile practitioner, sometimes you say things and you portray yourself in a certain way because you have to, because that's what people expect?
I feel the pressure. Yeah, I feel pressure. I mean, one of the worst things in my role, for me, is the label of my role because somebody goes, "Oh, cool, you got 5 minutes. Tell me everything about agile." I'm like, I'm still on this journey. I don't know. I know what it feels like, and I know my experiments, and I'd like to experiment with you, but I'm not here to sell anything. So yeah, I get a little anxious when I walk around saying, "Oh, you're the agile coach, right? I've got a question." I'm like, I don't know.
Fix my problem in 2 minutes, but do it in a very, very in the way that I've always heard about it. Yeah. No, I love that when you put that through to me. I was like, I love that the most because the amount of times I'm told that I'm not being agile, and it's like, oh, okay, that's cool. How about you, Niha? Have you been told you're not very agile? Because you two are very authentic. That's what I like about you two, right? I know you guys. We had beersies together. We had a barbecue together. For those who don't know, we spent 3 days together on this glorious mansion in Auckland.
This is how rumors start.
We were training, of course, but it was great. Um, but you guys are quite authentic, and that's what I like about you. You know, you say what you mean. So what do you reckon, Niha? Do you feel sometimes compelled to play the narrative, to wear the costume?
No, no, not at all. And that's why I was actually this is really interesting because it's like and I'll start with actually sort of two things because it's like, is agile a costume? I guess my interpretation of that's quite different. It's like actually sometimes it can be, and I'll talk about that, but because it's not in that metaphoric like costume sense at all. But I guess maybe my experience has been a little bit different, or people don't ask me that question because I don't know, I'm not really a people and culture person anymore, but I'm not also a title, an agile coach. I'm not a designer, but I'm actually a little bit of everything. Um, like truly, like the types of gigs or the types of contract work that I'm doing, it really does touch on all three or four, which is really cool. But then by not having such a specific title or an expectation associated with my role, maybe I don't really run into that so much where I have to justify, because it's like, actually no, it depends on what hat I want to wear and what conversation we're having. And quite often, and more often than not, and again, Mike, this is something you and I have talked about, over beers, again, quite passionately. It's about the value. I was like, wait, hold on. If this is a problem, where can I add what value? And then, very similarly, the question in return, whether it's about agile or not, what are you trying to solve, and what value will you create, and for who? I know that seems really dumb and really simple, and maybe that's because I was like, actually, I don't really think of myself as this really, I don't know, ninja agile expert or an agile person. It was like I'm very much learning as I go,
You're a
and it's
samurai,
fascinating.
Neha. Don't sell yourself short. You're a samurai.
I love it. Thanks, Amar. But yeah, so I guess my experience on that has been very, very different. Where I do think agile is a costume, and I guess where I was going with that is I was like, actually, I think it's sometimes when it doesn't work, right? So the intention's really good, and I think Mikey touched on it a little bit earlier on. The theory's really good, the intention's really good. You've got enough case studies, enough benefits to go, yeah, if we truly worked in this way, these are the benefits that we will see. But what actually happens is, and I'm guilty of this, I've done this about 3 times where, you've redesigned the entire operating model, you've created some new roles, the intended benefit on how they're supposed to work is supposed to be incredible. And you call these new roles what they should be called, whether that's your product owner, chapter, again, whatever it is that you're trying to do. But you just give them those new names and then therefore costumes. But what you need them to do, it's really a costume. It's like, well, I've just given you this new title, but you're not the big bad bull for the Little Red Riding Hood. Going with, sorry, Halloween, costumes I've seen today. But you're not truly that. It's just a costume because you're still working in exactly the old ways that you were. So that's something I'm personally guilty of, and I haven't quite always cracked, and that I see happen quite a lot still. What do you guys think?
Well, this is the reason why I love this question because there is a lot of this in many areas, right? And you touched on it just there, Niha, around the role. What is a Scrum Master? What is an Agile? There's a huge debate on LinkedIn right now around Scrum Masters and Agile coaches. And I know a vast percentage of those people are waiting for the outcome so they can basically do that role. That role.
Start half of these conversations.
Hmm?
Did you
Sorry?
start half of these conversations?
I may have prodded them in certain directions, yes. But no, there are people, especially in the UK at the moment, and I think it's because obviously a lot of people have become unemployed now, so they're
Yeah.
trying to transition between different roles and look at similarities in there. But it's still that mindset of a role. And it's like, okay, so what does the role mean? What costume do I need to wear today? And I'm guilty of this, Niha. I'm guilty of this. What I do is this. I go, oh, hang on. I'm just taking off my product owner hat. I'm putting on my coach hat now. Oh, putting it off, and I'm putting on my consultant hat now. Why am I doing that? Because I'm basically programming myself to have the costume of a product owner, of a scrum master, of a coach, of a consultant. Is there benefit in that, Niha? Or am I doing that because of some like that's the expectation of society?
Well, yeah, I think there is definitely an element of conditioning, but I wonder if on a day to day it may be because what other people are expecting from you when you swap those hats, right? So when they come to you, Amara, for example, the question that you asked, oh, tell me about Agile in 5 minutes. Give me Agile one-on-one in 20 minutes. What do I need to know? They're coming to you because their expectation, they've put you in this box of Agile enterprise coach. Sometimes we reinforce that. That's what you're probably doing, Mikey, when you're changing different hats because you're actually showing up in that way because that's what that person or that team needs from you. And it's really maybe it's like I don't know, navigation, right? So it's like actually those people or other people that you're communicating with, maybe it gives them a reference. So maybe it's not always also about you, it's what other people want to give you so that they understand what they can come to you for.
I
Yeah,
think that's a
no,
good thing. I
nice.
mean, Mikey, I love what you were doing. I mean, what you described is I guess now you mentioned it, is you being agile. You're adapting to your environment. See, people had expectations. I mean, Lisa Atkins, that her and her partner that coined this label, agile coach, talk about these different eight different facets, different hats you need to wear at different parts, and that, I mean, that troubles me sometimes, but also speaks to me. So back to your point, I think it's a good thing. Part of the success of our role as change agents or advisors or consultants or just support servant leaders is to know which hat to wear when. The mistakes, my horror stories were going to the party wearing the wrong hat. You know, I'm now gonna mentor you. I'm like, I don't want you to mentor me. I'm now gonna help with PO mastery. I know all about that. I just want to know about something else, and those are the horror stories that I've been struggling with in my journey, in my role, regardless of what my title was. It's those hats. So I think success is wearing the right hat to the right conversation. Like, Neha, the people who come and stop me for that 5 minute, send me 5 minutes and tell me what agile is, I fall in that trap because they're trying to tell me, come on, I dare you to sell me agile in 5 minutes. I need to stop and saying, I don't need to. I'm only here to help you agile if you want to go there. If you don't want to go there, that's fine by me. I'm not from the I don't know, the religion of agility. I want to help people get high performance and make shit that's worth something.
Here's my book, Amar, and if you follow this in order, you'll be agile. But you know what? I won't be here when you finish the book, so it won't actually matter. Yeah, no, and I agree, and I'll also be open and honest about it. I know there's a psychology reason of why I do it. I know ever since I was 14 and I left school that if you play one-upmanship, you get more credibility.
Yeah.
It's a thing. So when I was, a nobody and I got given what was my first title? Kanban lead. Um, I called myself a scrum master. And everyone's going to hate the hierarchy now. I don't mean it this way, but it's what's perceived, right? And when I was a scrum master, I started calling myself a senior scrum master. When I was a senior scrum master, I started calling myself an agile coach, enterprise coach, business agility consultant. You start pulling yourself up, and up. The problem with that, of course, is everyone needs different things. So teams, Amar, you've been an enterprise coach, right? If you were to go on one team and talk to a team as if you need to be a scrum master, you're now too high level. You're sitting in the bleachers, like listening down, and you don't have time for it. So that's where Scrum Masters and or ATF come in. That's what that's what they are there for. They get more value at a team level.
It's funny,
Um,
Michael. I hate that title. Just hearing you
which one?
say it, I regret ever
Oh,
labeling
enterprise coach.
myself on LinkedIn or my CV
Just for records,
enterprise
Amar
coach.
was the enterprise agile coach. Sorry,
Just
Amar,
yeah,
but
just
you were.
hearing you
So was
say it
I.
kind
Like,
of makes me going, oh, cringe learning moment.
yeah, and I'm trying to unwind that now, right?
Why?
Go,
Go
Neha.
ahead.
I was just going to ask why. Like, I'm really curious.
Because I'll tell you
Personally,
why.
like why?
Because in the community with my colleagues with different companies, I've reinforced and been part of this problem that Michael just described, that people are labeling different things. And I found that trap because I joined an organization and that role gave me a higher pay. And I was really excited by the higher pay and the chance and the courage. And I put that title in there. Then I felt like such a fraud. One of my biggest, I looked at my mentors that I work with, and then I had a scan of their LinkedIn profile CV. They never, they were an agile coach for the last 25 years, and they say it with pride. And I was thinking, why am I not proud of being a coach, an agile coach, whatever? I'm here to help people. It just happens to have a label and just stop there. So I regret because I think it didn't come from a genuine place. It was more from my ego, and it reinforced what Michael was talking about the conversations happening all over about labels and Scrum Master, Kanban lead, whatever. So that was my little cringe moment.
Yeah, I love that,
Yeah,
Amar.
and yeah, me too. Thank you for being so honest and so sharing so openly as well. Like, I really appreciate that. But there's two things because it's really interesting. So it's like I don't know that the my instant thing as you were even talking about your own experience about that then was that is that a Kiwi cultural thing? We're often quite not good at owning it and going, hey, like maybe I am at that level, and it's not a bad thing because I'm still just as passionate about the craft, but I'm comfortable and okay in my skin owning it. So I do, I think, and don't get me wrong, I'm very similar. So I probably have a very similar kind of reaction. The whole imposter is really real too sometimes. But I think there's a Kiwi culture reinforces that. And that's not necessarily in us, because I was like, well, I come from a different cultural background. I've spent enough time in North America, hoping that some of it may be rubbed off just a little bit, if not too much. But then you come back and you're like, actually, culture's all around you as well, right? In terms of
Yeah.
what makes you feel comfortable or uncomfortable. So it's like, I wonder if you experience exactly the same experience in North America,
I'll tell you what.
or
I mean,
maybe you didn't get a reaction, would be
yeah,
different.
I grew up and studied a lot in North America too, but I only came to New Zealand in my well, really in my 30s. But you pick it up. So I there's a bit of that you pick up. You're right. But in my example, it was I was just an agile coach for a team. My team happened to be the enterprise. So if you change that title to I'm an agile coach for a team, I'm an agile coach for multiple teams, I'm an agile coach for a tribe, I'm an agile coach at the enterprise level, but I'm
Yeah.
still this is what I do, and I think I let that get to my head, but that's the way it was, So it's more of a keeping me grounded because I suddenly overcomplicated solutions.
Mm.
But if I when I realize I'm just an agile coach and this is just a team, and just to be a team's execs or the leadership team in the IT department, I still treat them like a team. They have their fears, their risks. They need to form. They need to have a purpose, a common north star, and then suddenly things got easier and became less of a nightmare. Yeah. This is my.
Do you feel liberated now with that understanding?
It's funny. I've since left that organization and joined a different organization, and it's those learnings from those I won't say horror stories, but personal horror experiences that made me better, which really helps me kind of address. You know what? I'm very proud that I think I'm like 10% agile because I'm learning from my mistakes. I'm adapting, and I'm happy with that. And I hope next year I'm 12% agile, and I just keep growing through these crucibles that I put myself in.
I guess my most liberating thing, Amar, and not trying to sell this lifestyle in some ways, but since going truly into consultancy, you stop worrying about agencies. You stop worrying about CVs. And that was probably you've come to this by yourself, and I love that. I came to it through almost like by mistake. No one I send a proposal to cares if I'm an enterprise agile coach. No one. Yes, I may get 5,000 subscribers on LinkedIn. Awesome. Have you noticed that? Scrum Masters have an average of 1,200. Agile coaches have more. Enterprise coaches have more. And if you're, Lisa, who wrote the Agile Coach book, you have a lot more than that. So there's like a hierarchy of like social credit in some ways, which I find balmy. But no one cares. They care about outcomes. What is it you're going to do for my organization? How are you going to help that? Nobody wants me. Like I'm doing. I've got somewhere around 8 teams at the moment I'm working with personally, mostly in government, in Wellington, and so I'm a Scrum Master. I'm a social leader. I'm a one-on-one people manager. I'm a high-performance coach for some of the leaders. I'm whatever they need me to be. I'm no longer doing this anymore either, guys. I'm no longer changing the hat. I'm just Mikey. I have a set of skills, and if they can help you, great. They can't help you, great. How do we get to our objectives? But I've got that. I guess I can do that now, so I don't have to worry about a CV. But how do we help other people get out of those role stereotypes? Because they are hurting us. Right now we have arguments between a Scrum Master system and a coach system saying they're exactly the same role. They're not the same role. They're really not. But the same person could possibly go between what's required for the 2 roles. The same way that you and me could do all kinds of roles, Amar. We don't need to just be enterprise coaches or adult coaches. We could call ourselves social leaders. We have a vision over here. Want to come join me? Yeah, this way. Does it really matter?
Well, if you're a leader, you need to have followers. And for the record, you got 998 followers. Michael only has 885. So
Where is that on? Why do I not know this?
you gotta do your homework. I'm not gonna join a YouTube live channel with 2 amazing people and not know how many followers they have. Talk about leading and following. You're right. People follow through inspiration, through role modeling. They wanna meet this person because they heard about this person. They're curious. So that's the best thing about having followers, on the social platform. Dangerous to make it the be all end all. Are you guys scanning your LinkedIn to find out what it is?
Yeah.
No,
I'm not. I got 4,900. Thank you. I was like, did I just lose a whole bunch? Social validation, I require it. No, but it is interesting, and as I say, like I found it very interesting how, even though there's no hierarchy, and there isn't, that's the whole point. And you're right, Amar, for putting that on your CV, because it does help. It does get you the next role. It does help you move up the ranks of pay. It does give you more credibility, and you can do more good with it. You can also do more harm. I think there's a lot of phonies out there that I guess have learned some things on a 3-day course and now are just like rocking away like they know everything.
We have to be kind and empathetic to them. We have our different reasons. I mean, I'll be honest. I was a phony a couple of 5 years ago. I only got. You know why I became an agile coach? It's because I was stuck in Hamilton, and there was this position, and if I was to get it, my company would move me from Hamilton to Auckland, and pay me more. And I'm like, what is it called? Agile coach. What is it about? My boss says, I think you'll do good in it. I'm like, yeah, cool. I'll interview. I'll do whatever. And I got it. And then only after making some mistakes, I'm like, wait a second, there's ethics towards this. But let's be kind to those phonies out there because they're on a journey. They'll learn. I think they'll learn their own way with the strong team and strong companies.
So Richard's got a good point online. Has anyone started calling themselves strategic agile coach? I think we should coin that, write a book, and instead of 7 hats, we'll have 9 hats. and that'll grab more of the market. So we'll have more market share, and we'll sell more copies, and then we could create a cause behind that. Thanks, Richard. We're now millionaires.
Well, Neha, from outside in, what do you feel about all these titles? 'Cause I know you come from a idealistic position, from a people perspective, and like I said, you're doing amazing work and great reputation. Your brand is well respected, but you never had to struggle with this whole labels of, am I Scrum Master? Am I Kaizen coach? Am I product coach? Am I Kanban lead? Am I agile coach, enterprise coach, or strategic agile coach?
I love that now.
I'll be no, I'll be really honest. Because it was like actually coming from HR, right?
Yes.
And I loved it because I watched this talk of you, like even as I'm hearing this conversation, and I mean it with all the love and all the respect, but it was like, it sounds like a little bit of an identity crisis. So it's kind of that same thing about the costume, right? Like that we're kind of debating this. My wish for like most of us, that are working, whether you're an employee or a consulting, and when I think about how we're going to make work better, it's all love it, Mikey. I think what's really really key there, it was like, actually, do we all understand what our value proposition is at
Mm.
every time? And it's always evolving, and it should
At a
be
personal
evolving,
level, you mean?
growing, and you're learning at a personal level,
Mm.
right? And then, okay, cool, whatever that value proposition is, how does that fit in with that organization or that team or wherever, whether you're coming in as a consultant, whether you're coming in as an employee? And I was like, well, the day we can move away from giving ourselves our labels or identifying our sense of ourselves with these labels, we'll be in a good place. So, the profession that I come from, and I love, like, don't get me wrong, like, I absolutely love HR. I don't really see myself doing anything outside of that people and culture phase. What I'm really excited about is that actually we're at that cusp of that changing, and changing in the best way, as well. But, we've got the same problem. It's an identity crisis.
Really?
It's like, do we want to be people and culture, people and capability? Are you
Yes.
HR? Well, it's like, well, HR's, just as good as personnel. Like, what was wrong with that? So, there's like different kind of, so it's,
I feel
I guess
better.
very
It's everywhere.
similarly with an
Not just
agile.
us, Mikey, in our community. That's good.
It's everywhere.
Well, no, not everywhere.
Oh,
No,
okay.
I
just don't
strongly
call yourself human
disagree.
resources.
I just think HR, like, it's what people get, right? Like, I'm not precious. I'm not at all attached to names. But marketing don't have that problem. Finance don't have that problem. Why? Because they've always kind of had that credibility, right? Like, you don't hear finance kind of making
Or
up new,
they haven't
although I think
changed.
they
Sorry,
should.
Or they
can I
haven't
correct?
changed. They've been doing the same financial modeling
Oh,
and never
don't
changed.
insult my
That'd be
finance
why.
crew. So, as the ex-accountant, just to clarify that, we went through a phase calling ourselves analysts.
Oh,
Everyone was an analyst. Air New Zealand was a perfect example of that. I came to New Zealand. I was the accounts payable supervisor. Then I was the assistant accountant, but my job hadn't changed. I was still doing accounts payable. So it was very descriptive 10 years ago, and then it became very almost like fluffy. And then I was called an analyst, which is really good for me because I'm a financial analyst. I'm not a financial analyst. I'm not qualified to say I'm that, but that's what I was, and that allowed me to rank up to business analyst. So I'm sitting here today because Air New Zealand called me an analyst, but I wasn't analyzing anything. I was processing invoices at the time. So I don't say that they do it exactly, but I do think that there has been some misdirection during the transformations of 2008 for finance. So obviously, for those who don't know this, in finance went for a big, massive redundancy period, 2005, 2012. It's still happening, really, but roles were disestablished. So no longer could you call yourself the accounts payable supervisor, because you'd have to call yourself the accounts payable supervisor and the accounts receivable supervisor and the payroll supervisor in one. So better just call you an analyst instead. So whereas today we're trying to, I guess, generic term the roles because it means you can do anything because you're cross-functional, right? Back then it was more about, well, just got rid of the accounts receivable supervisor. So you're both now. We'll call you analyst. Yeah. So I just want to throw that out there that there is other departments that it's not so much a crisis of people wanting to call something different. Definitely is a few horror stories there as people got let go.
Oh, right. Yeah, that would make sense. But then, with the whole titles though, Mikey, like with again finance, but when we were debating this, it was like, okay, are we having a bit of an identity crisis? But even when I asked that question, if you kind of go back to the principles of psychology, and we've talked about that quite a bit tonight, um, I was like, actually, we still live in that world where our sense of worth, the amount of hours and the amount of time we spend at work, the most common question that we still get asked when you're at a barbecue or at a dinner is like, oh, what do you do? What do you do for a living? So it's really hard to, at a personal level, and when it comes to that psychology, to decouple your sense of identity without that title. It's a shift. It's something we've always done, every age stage, right? Like growing up from within school, you're moving from year 6 to year 7, intermediate to high school to uni, there's always an association. So all of a sudden, I think there's a little bit of that kind of transition and going back to those good or psychology principles. So you're smiling, Mikey.
Well, I'm smiling, so I'm going to bring that psychology now as well. Which tribe do you sit in? So that question, some friend of mine said he hates that question because they're always trying to work out how much money you're on. I said, no, it's not. It's not about how much money you're on. I'm sure it is in some ways, but it's all about which tribe you sit in. They want to know, do they associate with you or not? Which collective are you in? And I find that question really hard. So, Niha, what do you do for a living?
I help, do you want a 5-year-old answer, or do you just want my kind of
We're
standard
at a
answer?
barbecue. We're at a barbecue. You don't know me. Here's a beer. What do you do for a living, Niha?
Yeah, I help businesses make work better.
Nice. Amar, what do you do for a living?
Oh my god. I hate that question. I really can't answer the question. I really can't. But it's it's funny. Neha, you touched on cultural things, and Michael, I grew up in Dubai. In Dubai, your identity crisis. In Dubai, you're identified by your business card. So people do ask you, "Hey, what do you do for that particular purpose, Michael?" Because we want to be in this tribe, socioeconomic leveling. In New Zealand, it's funny, when I first came here, no one asked me what I do. People ask me, "Where do you work?" And I find myself being such an arrogant prick in the beginning. Oh yeah, I work at company A, and I am the team leader. Look at me. Ooh, I'm important. And no one cares. So, out of all the cultures I've worked in 3 different countries, in New Zealand, hardly anybody asks, "What do you do?" The first question is, "Where do you work?" And usually, most people stop there, which I'm kind of grateful. This is what I love about New Zealand. And, that humble culture makes for great teamwork, but
Do you
makes it
think that's
difficult
because
to.
in Auckland it's so darn confusing with all your new titles?
Yes, yes. Maybe that's why no one says it, because I don't know what to do.
Because so here in Wanganui, people ask me what do I do quite a bit. So it's probably
Oh,
slightly
really?
different.
Okay.
But it's because they're asking really, am I a tradie, am I a blue collar worker, or am I a white collar worker?
They're like, "Why are you home all the time? What do you do?"
I'm not home all the time.
Yeah.
As you can see, right now I'm in this haunted room. This is my haunted room. This is just how small I am compared to my monsters.
Listen, I know we're coming to an end close, but talking about horror stories, Neha, do you like horror movies?
I love horror movies.
I bet you
Mikey?
do. I knew you would.
Mikey, you love horror movies?
I love horror movies.
Do you know? I used to love horror movies, Amar, until this is a long time ago, obviously. My ex-girlfriend showed me what real horror movies were, and now I thought that Scream was a horror movie. It's not. So I'm gonna say no, no, no.
Neha,
Real horror movies, no.
why do you love horror movies, Neha?
I think, I mean, I don't know. I've always liked kind of, I don't know, there's something about being scared. Maybe it's the reaction. And again, kind of going back to, the chemicals. I am the biggest wuss, by the way. Like sometimes, especially paranormal or anything like that,
Oh, yeah.
I've got my eyes closed or a big cushion. And I was like, hey, is it done yet? Is it done? Can I watch? Can I watch? But I'll still sit through it. Um, I don't know, like I quite, yeah. And I'll watch like a really shitty horror movie too, just to kind of get through it
Those
and
are the
go, oh,
best.
okay, what happened?
Those are the best. The classic B-rated horror movies, you know? Lots of screaming,
Yeah.
lots of nudity, and lots of fake blood.
Yeah. What about you, Amar? Are you a big fan of horror movies?
I love horror movies. I love horror movies so much. I'm one of those parents that tries to get all my kids into horror movies. I,
Oh,
I believe you let your kids watch horror movies early in their life, it develops a sense of creativity, you know? Because they're always thinking, is that possible? Could that happen to me? Is there a monster in my bed? If there was, where would it go? How would it get there? And that curiosity that I want my kids to grow up in is why I want to watch horror movies. And I love it to death. I get scared. I'm a big wuss. I don't close my eyes because I want to see the blood, but I watch it again and again.
hmm. Interesting. I mean, you could technically say that the current elections around the world is like a horror story,
Yeah.
and that you can't actually beat 2020 for a real-time live feed of fun. Um, but yeah, I like that. Thank you.
No,
Cool.
I thought we had to mention some horror movies being Halloween before we end. This has been really exciting.
Yeah, no, I've quite enjoyed this, and we've still got 5 concurrent viewers. So thank you guys for staying with us.
Any
I
more
do.
questions before we leave? Or
Yeah,
you
any
wanna...
questions, guys? Just double check there wasn't any questions up top. Now, it looks like Ben was saying Amar, and you said I was everywhere. That was quite funny. Amar is literally everywhere. He's not at home. That's actually a green screen. He's actually inside the internet, just duplicated.
Is that
Um,
Ben? Ben is everywhere. One day I want you guys to meet Ben.
have I met Ben? I
You will meet him soon. He's gonna do one of your courses, right, Ben?
forget. We don't know if Ben's still there though. This is the only problem with this. You can't see who's actually there. We did have 9 people though. For a
Well, it's
Saturday
Ben
night, guys.
and 8 of Neha's friends.
Probably. I'm pretty certain my courses are just filled for the Nihas friends anyway. Like, just like,
My mom promised she'd watch, so I think she watched and she left. So
oh, that's cool. I like that. All right, well, we're gonna end the stream here then with no more questions. Um, what's your reflection on the horrors of agile transformations from this conversation, Amar?
to put it brief, I think we've got to go through the ugly sides to learn and have more people in the community to know what bad looks like as equally as what good looks like. So it's something we I think have to go through as a community and as organizations.
Love it, Niha.
I think mine a little bit. There's two, I think, in the context of horror, what kind of fear are you focusing on? Was my number one. I think my number two, talking about costumes being Halloween, what costumes or what mask are you wearing and why? And I think the third one, and kind of lastly, we had a really good discussion around, well, what's actually going on for that person in terms of where they are, whether you're working with an individual or an enterprise or a team, and just being mindful of, I guess, where they might be coming from.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you for sharing. For me personally, I'd like to thank you both for joining me in this wonderful horror themed. What I really want to get across tonight, and I truthfully didn't tell our guests what I was trying to get out of this event, and they've hit the nail on the head for me, is that horror is not always a bad thing. It can be exciting, it can be fun, it can be dreadful, it can be twisted. It's about, I guess, channeling those emotions so that you're continuously improving yourself, your teams, your organizations towards a common goal. And actually, by ignoring these horror stories, you're just basically just putting your hands over your face. You'll never gain the customer and employee value that you so obviously want. Awesome. This is Michael from Surge.coach, partnering with leaders to maximize your organization's potential. Thank you for coming and listening for our first ever live stream on YouTube. See you guys.